welcome to the second part of my perimenopause and menopause video series. In part one, I discussed definitions for perimenopause and menopause and some of the common symptoms that many women may experience. The thing to remember is that most symptoms won't last forever. They are caused by the fluctuating hormones, and during perimenopause, this is typically a time of high estrogen but low progesterone or declining progesterone. Once we reach menopause, which is that moment in time that represents 12 months since your last menstrual cycle or period, we have both low estrogen and low progesterone. So during this second part of the video series, I'm going to cover some nutrition fundamentals or basics. There's a lot to cover in this section, so I will break it into 3 short videos. The first covering the carbohydrates, the second protein, and the third will look at our gut microbiome. So first off, carbohydrate. So this is a really important macronutrient, and we do need to consume some carbohydrate each day, as it provides the body with its preferred energy source, which is glucose, especially the brain. The brain prefers to use glucose. It's not to say that we can't use other energy sources, but it is the preferred source. However, during perimenopause and menopause, we become more carbohydrate sensitive. So this means the way our body handles carbs changes. So it's a time of decreased insulin sensitivity, and we have increased circulating blood glucose. We also experience increased baseline cortisol. So cortisol is our stress hormone, and stress reactions. So it's the high estrogen or that estrogen dominance that categorizes this time that affects our insulin levels, also our cortisol levels, how we react to stress, and this contributes also to elevated blood sugar. So it's this insulin resistance combined with the elevated cortisol that may lead to that increased fat mass. And our biggest body composition changes actually happen in the 3 to 4 years before menopause. But of course, it's not just our hormones that are at play here. So there's the normal aging effects, mean that we do store more fat, we use less fat, and we also lose lean muscle mass, and that happens for both women and for men. So what can we do to help mitigate this and help our body respond better to the carbohydrates? So essentially, we just need to be more choosy with the carbs that we intake or consume. So we need to really focus on those high fiber carbs, those real complex whole grain carbs, basically, a lot more vegetable based carbohydrate. We need to decrease our intake of those really simple refined carbs. So that's your lollies and your cakes, but also your white bread, your white rice, pasta, potatoes, that kind of thing. And we also need to change the way we eat. So we still need to have our carbs, but it's better if we try and time that in and around our exercise. So as I said, we sort of should save the white rice, pasta, that sort of stuff, the croissant maybe, to after we can to consume after exercise, and then the rest of the day have those real complex high fiber carbs from fruits, vegetables, and nutrient dense grains like your whole grains and your quinoa and your buckwheat. And I've got this, I think some of you I've posted this up in the past, but this is a really great little example. I'll just try and show it properly of what a meal plate should look like. So any time meal you'll see here, it's the green is a real abundance of vegetables. We've got some protein, this side some protein as well as some healthy fats, so like your olive oils, your nuts, avocado, that kind of thing. But then the post-workout meal, you see here we have a little bit of starchy carb up here. So that just gives a good representation of just sort of what I mean by focusing in on having that starchy carb. So that's, as I said, it's your white breads, your pastries, your cakes, your potatoes, your white pasta, etc. Having those in and around your exercise. So that post-exercise meal, perfect time to have that. And then the rest of the day, get your carb source from really nutrient-dense, high-fiber sources. So that would be in terms of vegetables, it's basically all the vegetables, your eggplants and Brussels sprouts, carrots, onions, zucchini, spinach, mushrooms, all those like beautiful, lovely vegetables. And we want as much diversity and richness of color there as well. And then, of course, we've got all the fruits, so the berries, pineapple, orange, grapes, peaches, whatever's in season is what we want to look for there. So the other way that we can help to reduce some of the, or counter some of that blood glucose response from the higher GI and sort of starchy vegetables or starchy carbohydrates is actually with quality protein. And that leads us nicely into the next video, which I'll go into that in much more detail around protein and why that's important at this time. So stay tuned for the next video on protein, which I'll release in the next day or so. Thank you.